This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Public Works meeting, February 5th, 2025. Make a motion to open this evening's meeting.
Second.
Thomas Pillsbury?
Aye.
Steve Litwin?
Yes.
Both in favor, motion carries.
All right. Item number 1 is public speak. I don't believe we have anybody joining us that wishes to speak.
The mayor's not coming tonight.
Not expecting the mayor. All right, we'll move right to item number 3, approval of the December 4th, 2024 meeting minutes. Were you able to review what was sent out? Any issues?
No issues.
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve the December 4th meeting minutes as prepared.
Second.
Thomas Pillsbury?
Yes.
Steve Litwin?
Yes.
Both in favor, motion carries.
All right, item number 4, new city infrastructure improvement project presentation.
So we've been working with the planning department on the new city infrastructure improvement project. There'll be some CDBG funding to go over this. And what we wanted to go over with the board tonight was the 50% design for the street layout. And among some other things that I'll let Diane kind of get into a little bit more. So I'll just move over here so I'm not in the way of the slides she prepared, just a few, so.
So as Greg mentioned, we've been working on the new city project. I'm here to talk about both the 50% design for the streets and for the sewer. We have them as 2 separate kind of contracts, which will become clear why as I go further. Greg's here he's the DPW director, and Allison, our new planning director, is here. So we'll do our best to answer your questions. If we don't, if we can't answer them now, we'll look into it for you. So I just wanted to start out, we've got a lot of projects happening in this area, in the new city neighborhood and adjacent, and they're all kind of intertwined, and we need to do a lot of coordination with them, and it works as kind of one giant project in a way. The Emerald Place slope stabilization and road utilities, I believe we've been to the board before and discussed. There's some slope stabilization issues all along that slope along Emerald Place between that and the pond. And with that, we have some road, sidewalk, water, drainage improvements all along that roadway. As part of that was done by Fuss & O'Neill, that design. As part of that design, we also did a pedestrian bridge, which crosses the spillway for Lower Mill Pond. Currently, it's really hard for pedestrians to get from the new city neighborhood over to the bike path and basically across the pond. They have to cross to the north side of Ferry Street and then cross back over, which is very dangerous. So at some point, we're looking for funding to install that. We just got a Housing Works grant for the Ferry Street, Parsons Street improvements. So the big piece of that is improving the well-known Parsons Street, Ferry Street intersection. We're really trying to improve sightlines there. That's being done by VHB. We're working with the 11 Ferry Street development. That's the Housing Works piece of it. And there's also some other pieces that are happening on the private property where we will have reciprocal easements. But the big piece on Ferry is going to be moving that wall back that is creating a lot of the sight distance issues. Moving that back, adding a sidewalk along there, and adding some improved crosswalks with the rapid flashing beacons to help with pedestrian movement through there. And really the big driver for this was the sight lines at Ferry and Parsons, which for the Housing Works, being that it's going to be the main road probably that a lot of those people will be using, that's how it's connected to that for the Housing Works grant purposes. Kleinfelder is doing the rest of the design for this neighborhood that I have laid out here. There's 2 parks that I'm really not going to talk about today, but they've been talked about more in the Parks and Rec department. One is the Parsons Street Park, which is an existing park that we're redesigning. And then the Lincoln Street Park is a a city-owned parcel that's behind the old Parsons Street School. We're looking at putting a new park there. KMGB is a sub-consultant to Kleinfelder, a landscape architect that is heading that design.
The design of those two parcels doesn't really fall under the Board of Public Works.
So, yeah. So I'm gonna start with the New City Sewer Rehab. As you can see, it's for the entire neighborhood. Because this is such a big neighborhood, funding made us have to split this into multiple design phases. But we're looking at the sewer for the whole neighborhood because it was decided in the planning study that we would line the sewer as opposed to replacing it. Lining it will extend the life of the sewer, like 50 years or so. It's not like a quick fix kind of thing. But the benefit, well, I would say the main driver for that was because there's a few roads in this neighborhood where the sewer is in the backyard, not in the front yard. So it would be a lot of disruption to those residents where the sewer runs through the backyard. That would be between Emerald and Harrison, Harrison and Lincoln, and Dartmouth and Oakdale.
We did a lot of evaluation to look at the sewer there to make sure it's a good candidate for lining, so we're able
Exactly.
to get a lot more, stretch the money a lot further by lining rather than complete replacement.
And part of looking at it as one project for the whole neighborhood, if the funding was available, we figured if we get one person out here to do all the lining, it would make more sense. If we're able to do it funding-wise. And as Greg said, we looked at it in the preliminary master plan. The big issue with trying to move that sewer to the roadway would be like most of the sewers coming out of those people's back of their house. So you'd actually have to replumb their house or bring the sewer outside all the way around, which would be maintenance issues for the homeowners in the future. There'd have to be cleanouts. And that's if the grades work. So this made the most sense. So we have it as a sewer lining project. I think there are about 6 spot repairs where we'll actually have to replace the sewer in 6 spot sections. Those will be in the bid and everything. And then we'll be lining it. It's about 7,000 linear feet of sewer, I believe, ranging from 8 inches to 15 inches. We're going to replace the castings as part of this project because that's what's exposed to the elements. So we'll be replacing the castings and doing spot like manhole repairs as part of this project. And lastly, as I mentioned before, this is all CDBG funded for the design. We're also looking at really formalizing all the easements because depending on which residents we're talking about, some of them have really good easements, other ones not so much. So we just want to make sure if we have to go in and repair or do any maintenance in the future that we have those correct easements. There's trees, there's pools, there's fences right over where we need to be able to access to do any maintenance. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the New City Phase 1 street design. And that's the handout I gave you guys because a lot of information on one. So for the Phase 1 design, these 5 streets were chosen. Oakdale, Dartmouth, Exeter, Federal, and Glen Cove. Is on the north side of the neighborhood. Basically, as part of this, we're looking at road redesign, sidewalks, drainage. As I said, sewer is its own little project, and then water. Most of the right-of-way, I would say, except for maybe parts of Glen Cove, is already all hardscape. We're just reallocating as part of this what hardscape we're gonna, whether it's gonna be sidewalk or roadway. So we had a public meeting in Parsons Park back in November with residents, giving them the pre-50% design basically to get their comments. And, parking is an issue in this neighborhood. They're worried about speeds, especially once you repave this. It's going to be a lot easier to drive around at higher speeds. So those were some of the big concerns in this neighborhood, other than, drainage and the typical utility issues. So with the 4 streets that go east to west, we have 5-foot sidewalk, at least 5-foot sidewalk everywhere. So like on the north sides of all of them, it's 5-foot sidewalk pretty much. On the south side, you'll notice that there's some bump outs. We have utility poles that we have and are trying not to move. And there's gonna be probably some new PROAG, which is the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines that are going to now require 4 feet of clearance around any obstruction. So in order to not move the poles, add a couple trees, put in hydrants, we have bump outs in locations where those obstructions would be. And with the tight roadways already, that's the side we'd want to put the parking on as well. So we're going to be we'll probably come to you guys and also City Council about moving the parking, which is currently on the opposite side of the roadway, to the side with the bump outs. We're doing our best to add as much parking as possible, but deal with all the obstructions as necessary. All the road widths are varied depending on which road you're looking at, but the basic idea is to have people park in where the bump outs are not on that side of the road, and then having a passing zone that will be in those bump out sections. So, I mean, obviously you could use, if there is no parked car there, as a passing zone as well. But to keep these 2-way roadways, and the nice thing, one thing the bump out and parked cars does is it does slow people down, because the wider you make a street, the more people think they can speed down it, and the obstructions do a lot to help slow people down. So Glen Cove is already also, the north-south section of Glen Cove is already very narrow, so really there'd just be the 5-foot sidewalk on the east side, and then no parking all the way down. And then we'd be narrowing down a little bit the Glen Cove Place intersection, 3-way intersection there, we need to make the turning movements still work for like fire and emergency vehicles, but we'd also be adding a sidewalk. And as I said, there's going to need to be coordination with the Emerald Place project to make that work as one cohesive
They
project.
bump up against each other there, the 2 projects.
Yeah. So I think that, and then we'd be redoing water, new hydrants. We're going to be adding some gate valves so it's easier to isolate the water main. Adding drainage. We're looking at the 2070 10-year storm as far as the drainage, because we know that storms are probably going to get worse, and they have been getting worse. So we're planning for that. And I think that's pretty much it. We'd like to put some green infrastructure in, but honestly, there's not a lot of space for it. And where there is space, there's a hill, so it likely will not be infiltration, but it will be filtration if we're able to put it in. And we're doing our best. And the same thing with trees. We'd like to add more street trees, but it's like a balance between having the space for parking and driving cars and being able to fit the trees in, so.
Tough neighborhood.
It's a tough
The houses
balance.
are right against the sidewalk, and there's a lot of on-street parking utilization. Some houses don't even have driveways.
Yeah, I mean, most of
Sharing
these,
them, and a lot of it, I think, is rental.
yeah, and most of these were built, the roads were built, this was built for the mill, and they were all pedestrian, pretty much, for parked cars, and so.
You've done a great job here of making it work as best as possible, given the restrictions right away.
So yeah, now I guess I will open up to questions and comments.
Any bike lanes or speed bumps on any of these roads?
Not on these, honestly. These are more residential. So I think for speed-wise, honestly the bump out and the parked cars will do a decent amount to keep the roads down. I was talking about the Ferry Street project. I think there may be some raised crosswalks in that project, but that's a more heavily traveled road, I would say.
And you plan on adding sidewalks as well?
So there are sidewalks out there right now, but most of them are 4 feet. So we're increasing that to 5-foot sidewalks, or where the bump outs, it's a little bit more than 5 feet.
Thank you.
I know it's a lot to take in, so.
No, I mean, I've been following along with all the
Right,
design
yeah.
meetings and stuff, so nice to see it formalized.
So some of the bigger issues from the public is just concerns of people racing down their streets or?
I mean, it's like any construction project, you know, it's nice, potholes act as a deterrent for speed. And the minute you pave, people have realized that you're gonna get higher speeds. I mean, they still, you know, there isn't an obstruction, if there's not a parked car on that road, speed is always an issue. It definitely comes up related to Parsons Street more
Yeah,
in a lot of the
Lincoln.
conversations, but that's not part of this project, so.
That's why it used to take me forever to come down the mountain road until they repaved it.
Yeah, so, no, yeah, and it does definitely act as a speed deterrent, having those potholes or at least looking for them, so. Yeah.
See the work done and as it progresses. What's the ultimate timeline for future design?
I mean, there's a lot, and these are expensive projects.
Mhm.
And honestly, we're kind of, especially for Emerald Place, the Emerald Place and New City, we're kind of pulling from some of the same pots of money.
Mhm.
Emerald Place is obviously further along than the rest of these roads. So we're probably aiming to go for a CDBG and MVP grant for Emerald Place this year. But that construction, if we did happen to get it, would start probably next construction season. And, you know, we'd be basically biting off small pieces of this as we can do cost-wise. So I would say this probably is gonna take over 5 years, you know.
Yeah.
I would say probably more than that, 5 to 10 years to really get all of this implemented.
There could be a lot going on over there in 26 between
Yeah.
the work on Ferry Street.
And we may need to do some temporary stuff in between too, just because of all of the interactions between the different projects. We might have to put in temporary sidewalks or ramps and things like that just to make it function while the different phases are getting built.
Understood.
So,
I think the bulk of the construction for the housing works portion will happen in 26.
Along
Along Ferry and
the Parsons intersection in Emerald.
that yellow one, yeah.
Yep.
So,
And I know you had mentioned the sewer, and it's an independent project. Does that have its own timeline, or is that just gonna be rolled out as
it's
the other
again
new city work?
funding, yeah, so I think that it's still the same CDBG pot of money probably that we'd be drawing from.
Okay.
And just because Emerald Place is further along and honestly,
Oh, no,
we
I
wanna get the
understand that.
slope, yeah, exactly, so
I
we're,
just didn't know if that would be held off till the other city
Mm.
stuff was in place, or if that could be an independent
oh,
project.
no, it's definitely, and that's why we're building it as two separate projects almost, because they really are two separate,
Yeah.
I mean, I think if the only thing that we'd wanna get, like if a road has one of those spot repairs in it, we'd wanna get the sewer done first.
Obviously, yeah.
But, so honestly, probably the sewer would go before the streets or like concurrently
Yep.
with a street maybe.
I guess since we haven't touched on it at all, what's the water infrastructure look like in this neighborhood? How is that incorporated into any of this?
It's mostly just old.
Yeah, functional but old.
Okay.
And
Is it,
And like-
is it in the roadways, or is that also?
Yeah.
back
Yeah,
on
all
it's,
the
it's in the
roads.
road and we're definitely looking at adding some more gate valves at intersections so we can isolate issues in the future better.
Taking out the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. Or for construction or a water main break or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. So,
Just curious.
yep, no, good questions. And that's one benefit of doing the water with everything else. We can adjust where we put the hydrants to make it work for the sidewalks, because we are replacing the hydrants, so there's a little more flexibility on that.
it'd be great. It's just gonna take a while,
Yeah.
and it'll be disruptive.
I mean, that's how
Yeah.
all our CDBG projects have gone. They're phased. That's how it works. and
Exactly.
That's how we make it work. All right, any other questions, public or from the board?
Nice job, thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Thank you.
For future updates. All right, if there's no further discussion on that, I'll move on to item number 5, director's report.
So I don't have much for an update for Union Street. Construction's just stalled now for the remainder of the winter. Get going again in the spring. They did finish the programming for the traffic light and pedestrian loop out here at Cottage and Williston intersection, so that's all functional now. We did have closed off that crosswalk for a couple weeks when the loop was kind of active, but it's all resolved. So we've been dealing with a handful of water main breaks over the past few weeks. We had one on Park Hill Road, Vadney Street, one yesterday on Ferry Street. All led to short-term service interruptions. Yesterday's was Ferry Street, Pepin Avenue. We were able to get our crews out there quickly, kept the service interruptions to the smallest areas we could. Had water back on to everybody within a few hours in all the instances. It's just the cold weather and lack of significant snow gets the frost pushing deeper, and we start seeing rain cracks on some of the old cast iron mains. So we're still waiting for comments from Mass DOT on our 10% design review for Main Street. So as soon as we have something to bring back to you guys on that project, we'll get that on the agenda. Hoping maybe next month, but we'll see. Right? So Pomeroy Meadow Road, the bridge. MassDOT sent us some correspondence yesterday and asked us to close and work with Southampton in closing the southerly half of that bridge and making it a stop on both sides with one lane. So I met with the Southampton Highway Superintendent this morning. We're working together on getting the necessary signage and barriers together. What MassDOT has referenced their Office of Ratings and Overloads in Boston took a harder look at an inspection report that noted some deterioration in the timber piles on the southern side of the bridge. So they want us to get all the traffic to the northern side. So we'll be getting that layout constructed over the next couple of weeks. There'll be a stop on both sides. It's kind of challenging with the Town Line Bridge. We have two that we share with Southampton. This one in Torrey Street. So, we're looking to clarify the full ownership and what we can get for assistance from Mass DOT. They told us we can use Chapter 90 funding on an emergency basis to fund some of this, but waiting for some more answers from them. Get it all laid out. So, a little inconvenient for people. Know they're stopped there, but they're stopping that Glendale Pomeroy Meadow street up. So.
Okay, well, thank you. Keep us updated.
Yep. This configuration that you have that I've gave you the drawing for, that'll likely be in place out there within the next week or two.
Okay. And it'll just be physical stop signs, not the automated one-way traffic stoplights.
Yes, no stoplights.
Okay.
That MassDOT has provided us exactly how they want us to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, down to the type of barrier we use. So I'm working on sourcing those barriers right now, funding them, and working through it with Southampton as to whose responsibilities are where. So
We'll get it in place and sort it out.
exactly. Yeah. And work then from this on to how we get it back to 2 lanes.
Understood.
So that bridge was built in 1964. I believe, to my knowledge, we haven't seen anything that showed the timber pilings have been being replaced. The gentleman I spoke to at MassDOT this morning said they're running into this timber piling supported bridges all over the state. So we have 2 others in town, Lovefield Street and Fort Hill are also by timbers.
When do you know their last inspection date?
Not off the top of my head, but they're more recent than this bridge.
Great.
And just getting ready for the snow. I got a call with the superintendent at 7 o'clock tonight to decide what we do for school tomorrow. And
Yep, I got my alert.
the parking ban alert.
Yep, they came out a couple hours ago.
Thank you for that.
Put all the clearing. Any other discussion on any point we've hit tonight? With that, I'll make a motion to close this evening's meeting.
I second.
Thomas Salisbury,
Yes.
Dave Letwin,
Yes.
those in favor, motion carries.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.